hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. We learned something. I hope we learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily All Hat No Cattle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Hello, Mad Hatters in the chats, YouTube, Trovo, and DLive, though not necessarily in the order of my greatest affections, but who am I to judge, right? You're all equal in my eye, or at least my eyes, I guess I should say. I do have two. Lots today, as I always say. We may actually, though, get out on time. I did have to cut a bunch of Wuhan virus stories. I just couldn't fit them in along with all the border news because there's a ton of border news today. There's great news coming out of Arkansas about the bill regarding transgender services for minors in that state. Good news there. But I think the big thing today for the first half of the show is going to be how the 46 asterisk administration is doing all it can to completely scuttle everything good, foreign policy-wise, that the Trump administration did, including completely wrecking Middle East peace. I'll get into that at the end of the first show. And in the after show, got a little bit of gun news, of course. I like to lead the after show with gun news. And then we will pretty much dive right into the border. But let's do what we've got to do here. First, this was yesterday's Ending Babylon Bee bookend. I, for some reason, skipped the end of the show after realizing I had to end. I still had a few stories left, and this was one of the best Babylon Bees of all time. It tied in perfectly with yesterday's story about Spirit Airlines kicking a family off of their jet because the 2-year-old, who was sitting on the lap of the mother, who was 7 months pregnant, alongside the father, who had their special needs child on his lap, they were kicked off the airplane because the 2-year-old wasn't wearing her mask while she was eating yogurt. There is film of her eating yogurt while that flight attendant comes up and starts yelling at them to get off the plane. Now, the good news from that story, in case you weren't here yesterday, was it turns out that the female flight attendant who accosted the family was not the instigator of this whole process. It was a male flight attendant who somehow got the female flight attendant to do his dirty work. And after all was said and done, everybody was forced to get off the plane, but they got back on the plane, except for the male flight attendant, who was seen leaving the terminal with flanked by 2 local police officers. Don't remember if he was in handcuffs or not. I said he was in handcuffs yesterday. That may have been wrong. But he was definitely led away from the airplane by 2 police officers and was not on the flight the rest of the way. So, what I had all lined up was this Babylon Bee bookend. Today it's the one on the left from their life section. Spirit Airlines installs ejection seats for toddlers who take off their masks. And there we have a shot of a Spirit Airlines 737 with a toddler in its seat, getting knocked clear out of the fuselage and hopefully parachuting to safety. Dateline Miramar, Florida. In order to crack down on the growing pandemic of toddlers not wearing masks after takeoff, Spirit Airlines has announced that all aircraft will now be fitted with ejector seats to quickly remove dangerous, maskless babies from the plane. Said company CEO Edward M. Christie, "We're not messing around anymore. We've had it with these uppity passengers and their uppity babies walking on like they own the place." Close quote. Sources confirmed that flight attendants will be given big, scary red buttons that can eject any passenger at will. Buttons will be used as an enforcement tactic against unmasked children, people who don't put their tray table in the upright and locked position when asked, and Orthodox Jews. Spirit also threatened that those who further refuse to comply will be forced to fly on Spirit Airlines again. Babylon Bee, everyone. By the way, in case you didn't get the last reference in the final paragraph, the family who was kicked off that flight initially, Orthodox Jewish. They were in Florida for Passover and were flying back home to New York to round out their trip. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's Spirit, after all. All right, my personal conceit, the market. The Dow Jones closed barely in the green today at 0.05% over yesterday's close at 33,446 and change, below record territory again. The S&P 500 was up just a fraction. The NASDAQ was down just a fraction. Gold slid. Crude oil was up 0.5%, still below $60 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate Sweet Crude. Now, Bitcoin is taking a bath right now. It is just above 56,000 per coin at the moment, down almost a full 4% over initial trading. So interesting things going on with Bitcoin. Moving right along. All right. Vaccine passports. We've been hitting on those quite a lot. There has been certain intimations from the 46 Asterisk administration that the government was going to be working on a federal passport vaccine. We already know that New York State has one pretty much in play already, put together by IBM. Other states were thinking about it, and there was a massive outpouring of rejection of that idea. Florida Governor DeSantis issued an executive order banning any use of, pardon me, my nose is itching, banning any use of vaccine passports in the state, thereby heading Biden off at the pass. Texas Governor Abbott did so also yesterday, although Abbott was a bit more mealy-mouthed yet again. Abbott's not quite the hard R Republican that you would like a Texan to be. He's basically saying that the state can't enforce vaccine passports, but that would allow private businesses to do that, unlike DeSantis' executive order, which the Florida legislature is soon going to be codifying into actual Florida law. But according to Jen Psaki, and we all know Jen's adjectives, let me bring them out for you. I didn't have them ready, but I've got them right here. Jen Psaki, the arrogant, condescending, dismissive, mendacious, passive-aggressive, patronizing, self-righteous, smug, lying White House press secretary. Jen said yesterday that the U.S. government would not be putting in place a federal vaccine passport system. She said at yesterday's press briefing, the government is not now, nor will we be, supporting a system that requires Americans to carry a credential. There will be no federal vaccinations database and no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccine credential. She acknowledged that private companies and nonprofits were looking into ways Americans could prove they were vaccinated against the Wuhan virus as the company works towards reopening. Here's the thing, though. Again, everything at the bottom of the article is the most important part. It happens so often when I'm doing the show. And here it is. And this is an article, by the way, from techgate.org. It says here, last sentence, the White House, however, said last week it would not impose any restrictions at the federal level related to vaccine passports, like keeping a nationwide database of those inoculated. Psaki doubled down on that statement Tuesday. So which is it? Good news, and then, Psaki giveth and Psaki taketh away. I really don't know where this is going, folks. I really don't. It's good news as far as the headline's concerned, but then you read the bottom of the article, and there's no idea really what's happening. Skullcram asked in the chat, in the D-Live chat, so it's okay for private companies to discriminate. Well, only if it's what the left considers something that you should be allowed to discriminate against. So you should be allowed to discriminate against any religious person who you feel is violating your secular tenets. And you're certainly allowed to discriminate against anyone who holds different political views than you do. But however, if you have a religious conviction that prevents you from dealing with certain sexual minority communities, then you will be dragged into court and thrown into chains and given bread and water for the next 5 years in solitary confinement. That's the way they run these things. So let's see what happens here. I would guess, I'm not predicting, we all know my predictions always turn out to be false, but I would guess that there may be some certain nationwide chains that could be interested in putting together vaccine passports for their establishments. Not saying it will happen, but if it was going to happen, I would guess that would be the place to look out for, would be very large chains. Let's see what happens. All right, moving right along. Of course, the other thing that's been in the news big time has been the administration's continued calling the Bill 202 in Georgia, and by extension, all of the bills currently in state legislatures around the country. I think there are some 29 states right now who are currently trying to codify their voting laws, doing certain things as requiring voter ID, strengthening verification of absentee votes, perhaps, let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to say, cleaning up their voter rolls, things like that. Common sense measures. Because we all know how the Democrats like to use common sense when it comes to gun control, but if you come up with quote-unquote common sense voting regulations, then it's, as Biden said again today, it's Jim Crow. He honestly, again, said today that the Bill 202 and the other states are implementing Jim Crow policies. Remember, folks, this is the healer-in-chief. This is the guy who's going to bring us all together by calling states who don't do what he thinks they should do Neanderthals, and then decrying any bill that the Democrats don't like as Jim Crow. That is horrible. I have never been so embarrassed by a president in my life, and I was alive for Jimmy Carter, folks. I remember Jimmy Carter quite well. So this is where I'm coming from on that. Anyway, there's been continued fallout over a particular part of the Democrats' complete and utter insane overreaction to Bill 202 and the other bills, as I just referenced, and that was yanking the All-Star game out of Atlanta and moving it to Denver. because baseball got their fifis hurt about a bill that asked people to use voter ID to validate their vote. I mean, horrific. How horrific. Of course, also, you could, if you voted absentee, which is no excuse in Georgia, just like in Colorado, if you voted absentee in Georgia, you could provide a photocopy of an ID, or you could put down your driver's license number. And of course, we were told that minorities are too stupid to figure out what their driver's license number is on a driver's license, the number being marked DL number. And you're also allowed to use the last 4 digits of your social security number. And of course, we all know that minorities don't know their social security numbers. So how could they be effed to do that? These are all common sense questions, folks. Remember, the Democrats are just asking questions and demanding that you do exactly what they say you should do. And as Skullcram points out in the chat, all white Denver, Colorado. Yes, Atlanta is over 50% black, and Denver is around 4% black, 4 to 5% black. Colorado, I think, has a black population of around 7%. No more than that, to be sure. But yanking the All-Star game out of Georgia, and the baseball draft, by the way, that was all supposed to be in Georgia, yanking those out of there was a blow for social justice and sticking up for the great minority population in both Georgia and Colorado. Of course, that denied Cobb and Fulton counties a good $100 million worth of revenue that they would have enjoyed during the All-Star game alone. But again, who are we to judge? Well, one person who's judged, although quite nicely, is former baseball commissioner Fay Vincent. Now, I had to be reminded that Fay Vincent was only baseball commissioner for about 3 or 4 years, from 89 to 92. But he was a great baseball commissioner. I thought he did a great job. I was pretty much into baseball back then, and I don't have a bad thing to say about Fay Vincent. And if it turns out he was a bad commissioner, then blame it on my Swiss cheese memory. But God bless the Wall Street Journal opinion page. They published an opinion article by former Commissioner Vincent, came out yesterday afternoon, and he quite nicely but firmly lays in to the current commissioner and all-around idiot, Robert Manfred. Remember, Manfred went by the whining of 50 black MLB players to pull the All-Star game out of Atlanta. 50 players as opposed to the tens of thousands of black residents of Atlanta, hundreds of thousands, and their businesses that are missing out on all the money they would have made. But remember, our grand president, 46 Asterisk himself, said in an inexplicable ESPN interview that professional sports players are the most basically disenfranchised of all Americans, certainly of the minority community. He actually said that. Go back and watch. He said it. But Fay Vincent, again, he says it nicely, but he says it well. Let me read the last part of his piece. During my time as commissioner, I learned that the American people view baseball as a public trust. They want the game to stand for the best and noblest of our national virtues. They see baseball as the repository of their dreams, even as they root for their favorite teams. They don't want and won't accept anything that separates them from the game's history and leadership. Major League Baseball can't become a weapon in the culture wars, a hostage for one political party or ideology. It can't only be for the rich or the poor, nor can it only be for one race, as it was until 1947. Baseball must always stand above politics and its dark elements of corruption, greed, and sordid selfishness. It can't go wrong by standing for national greatness. In the last paragraph, former Commissioner Vincent references the Duke lacrosse scandal from 2006. I'm sure I don't have to go into that with y'all. You all know it very well. But Vincent does say that he is not above jumping to conclusions. He is not putting himself as holier than thou over the new guy. But he is saying that much rides, I'm quoting, on Mr. Manfred's shoulders, so he must be prudent. Perhaps he now sees how complicated these issues have become can become. I wish him well. I just realized I did not turn off the fans. Excuse me just a moment. Let me go to the splits or the screen here so I can turn those fans off. I'm sorry. I'm sure they're noisy as all get out. Excuse me just a second. There we go. I have a checklist. Honestly, I have a checklist to do the show, and I still didn't get it done. And I was done early today. You always know the show's going to go badly in one way or another when I'm ready ahead of schedule, as I was today. I gave myself an extra half hour, and I still screwed up. It always happens. All right, moving right along. So another figure who hasn't been silent about what's going on in Georgia, specifically regarding the voter laws, is President Trump. We all know he has been extremely critical of Georgia Georgia voting system for quite some time, and he is not letting up. We've all been basically taking a victory lap for Georgia with the voter ID requirement, but Donald Trump is not missing the bigger picture. You'll remember that one of the big complaints that 45 has had with election in this country are the states that allow early voting. As he has often said, there shouldn't be early voting month. There shouldn't be election month. There shouldn't be election week. It should be election day. He wants all voting to happen on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and that is the way it should be, according to President Trump. Did I get that date right? First Tuesday after the first Monday? Or is it the second Tuesday after the first Monday? I can never remember. Skullcram asked in the chat, does this mean the Atlanta Braves are no longer America's team? That's an excellent question. Although I will take... the Braves were Atlanta's team. Ted Turner made sure of that. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, America's team. Ted Turner did make sure of that. Excuse me. But anyway, President Trump came out swinging yesterday regarding Bill 202, and he said the following. Georgia's election reform law is far too weak and soft to ensure real ballot integrity. Election day is supposed to be election day, not election week or election month. Far too many days are given to vote. Too much mischief can happen during this very long period of time. And he also added, you saw that in the 2020 presidential election. How's Ruby Freeman doing? And that's, of course, the president referring to an Atlanta election official and the ballot counting in Atlanta. So that is the president's take on that. Someone has also come out of the woodwork. Believe it or not, Mike Pence has launched an advocacy group. It is called Advancing American Freedom. It's a policy and advocacy group that will promote Trump-era policies and defend them from liberal attacks and media distortions while seeking to thwart radical left agendas that would threaten America's freedoms. And those are all quotes. Now, I have the video from the introduction to Advancing American Freedom, and I'll play it in just a moment. But I do want to thank Tom Ozimek from the Epoch Times for bringing this to my attention. It's only about 2.5 minutes long. I won't play all of it, but we'll get a good feel of it here. Let me blow up the screen, and here we go.
America, where one generation's dream is to pass on a more prosperous generation to the next, where freedom isn't just a goal, but a right. That's the America Mike Pence has relentlessly fought for. A Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order.
Greetings across the amber waves of grain. This is Mike Pence.
Speaking the American truth of faith, family, and freedom to listeners all across Indiana. Mike Pence emerged as the voice for our conservative values, not just on the airwaves, but as their advocate in Congress, and then
to the best of my ability,
as Indiana's 50th governor.
So help me God.
As governor, Mike expanded school choice, authored the largest tax cut in Indiana's history, and use conservative principles to create hundreds of thousands of new Hoosier jobs. It's no wonder why Mike Pence caught President Trump's eye and would help shepherd many of the greatest conservative victories of the past 4 years. 230 new constitutionalist federal judges, the largest tax cut in American history, and regulatory relief to ignite unprecedented economic growth. Fighting for American workers by ending the failed trade deals of the past and rebuilding the American military to take on the challenges of the 21st century. So much has been accomplished. But as Reagan said, our freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Now our freedoms, our values, and even the American dream is in jeopardy. Mike Pence is not about to surrender all we hold dear. That's why he's launched Advancing American Freedom, and he's inviting you to join the fight. Advancing American Freedom will fight for policies that ensure economic prosperity, fight to protect our conservative values, and fight for a strong foreign policy agenda that protects America, today and for generations to come. Our conservative principles and values are under attack unlike ever before. Please join Mike, stand with Mike, and join the fight. Advancing American Freedom.
Well, I actually did wind up playing the whole thing. That was great. I didn't watch all of it. I thought, well, I'll play about a minute and a half of it and we'll get the flavor of it and we'll move on from there. But I couldn't take my eyes off it. That was a very, very well produced piece of work there. Really well done. By the way, that's on, I got that off of Vimeo, but all you have to do is put into your favorite search engine, Introducing Advancing American Freedom, and you'll find it just fine. And that again is at advancingamericanfreedom.com. So feel free to check it out. Now, what does this mean for the future of Vice President Pence? I have no idea. I mean, that was as much of a campaign ad as it was an ad to reinforce Pence's conservative roots and his outlook for the future. So not exactly sure what the undercurrent of this is, but the overt meeting is quite nice. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Moving right along. We go from the great to the horrific. I wish I did not have to bring this guy up, but he is unfortunately, at least according to some, the President of the United States, and he is a person who makes news, even though it's always bad. And I will be honest with you guys, and I'm going to say this often, until he proves me wrong. I have yet to see one thing come out of this White House that has been any good for this country. Not one thing. And I'm not being partisan here. I mean it as an absolute fact. If anyone can name one thing this president has done that has benefited this country, either nationally or internationally, I'm all ears. I am all ears. So, Biden was doing one of his usual stand-ups in the White House, and he took a few questions. This, of course, counts as a press conference, according to Jen, many adjectives, Psaki. And Biden was asked about the Masters. As we talked about yesterday, the Masters golf tournament is played at Augusta National in Augusta, Georgia. It has been for, I can't remember how long. The Masters is a absolute institution in American sports and certainly in international golf. It is the golf tournament of all time. There are so many memories I have of incredible wins during the Masters. Although my favorite golf moment really is Tom Watson chipping out of the sand on the 17th hole in I can't remember the name of the course now, California, one of the courses that's right on the ocean, to take the win away from Jack Nicklaus. That was a major event. In fact, one of my doctor's offices, an imaging area, has a beautiful print of that actual shot, and I made them move it away from it was behind a door, and I actually stood there and made them move it away from behind the door to another area and put a piece of crap, modern art, behind the door. It really meant a lot to me. And thank you so much, White Fox Liz. Thank you so much. So Biden is asked about the Masters. He put his thumb on the scales as far as MLB moving the All-Star game out of Georgia. So it only seems fair that he should also want the Masters to move out of Georgia. I mean, as he's asked, if the players decide that they should do it, what are your thoughts on that? And Biden says, well, it's up to them. Who am I to say? But then he places the blame on the Republican governors for what's happening right now. He again calls these laws Jim Crow. Again, folks, the uniter in chief, remember? Bringing the country together by labeling Republicans as the most vile type of racists since slavery, who, by the way, were all Democrats, just in case you forgot. Jim Crow was a Democrat invention, as was the Ku Klux Klan. But who am I to judge? But Biden, he says, yeah, they could do it if they want to. I won't say anything. He did before, but now he won't. So no longer is he standing up for players' rights to the point of, basically forcing their hand. But then he blames it on the governors. The thing is, though, that's the over-the-top part of this. What I really want you to pay attention to, because we all know he lies, that's not news. What's news is how poorly he answers this question. It's only a minute and a half long, but listen to how slowly and painfully he gets this answer out. You can hear the hamsters running in his head, trying to put together a statement that absolves himself of all the blame that he rightfully carries for what happened to the All-Star game and the draft, and trying to pin the blame on the Jim Crow governors. It's horrific. This is the guy who's supposed to go toe-to-toe with Putin and Xi Jinping and Iran, etc., etc., etc. And I'll stop talking. Just listen to this. Listen to this.
Mr. President, do you think the Masters golf tournament should be moved out of Georgia?
I think that's up to the Masters. Look, it is reassuring to see that for-profit operations and businesses are speaking up about how these new Jim Crow laws are just antithetical to who we are. There's another side to it, too. The other side to it, too, is when they, in fact, move out of Georgia, the people who need the help the most, people who are making hourly wages, sometimes get hurt the most. I think it's a very tough decision for a corporation to make or a group to make. But I respect them when they make that judgment, and I support whatever judgment they make. But it's the best way to deal with this is for Georgia and other states to smarten up. Stop it. Stop it. It's about giving people two votes.
That's our president, folks. On the ball, on his toes, ready to bob and weave and just dodge those punches and jab, 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 and then boom, right cross. That's our president. I don't think he could throw a right cross. I don't think he could move his hand fast enough to make it look like a right cross. He has had so much time to prepare for that question, and it took him over a minute to answer it. The only part of that question that was even worthwhile was where he said that these decisions do impact the lower income people most. He got that part right, but he'll never take responsibility for it happening. It's the governor's fault, folks. It's the governor's fault. Uniter in chief, everyone. So as I teased at the beginning of the show, you'll remember yesterday I lit into the governor of Arkansas Asa, what's his last name again? Hutchison. Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson yesterday, or I should say Monday, vetoed a bill passed by the Arkansas legislature to block gender reassignment services in the state for minors, and that includes hormone treatments and puberty blockers. And I'm getting this from Eric Quintanar from the Daily Wire. So I lit into him for it, and if you watched Tucker last night, Tucker lit into him for it as well. I will give Governor Hutchinson credit for going on to Tucker, as Governor Noem did, to defend their positions in vetoing what seemed like to be slam dunks for conservatives. I'm still backing Governor Noem's decision. I think she did the smart thing, the strategic thing. She took the hit politically, but I think she's doing the best for her state. But Asa Hutchinson last night on Hutchinson, was obviously out of his depth. He had no idea what he was talking about. And Tucker gave him every opportunity to come up with a single bit of data that would support providing hormone blockers to minors. And Hutchinson didn't have a one. Not a one. But he stood his ground. I'll give him credit. But he's an idiot. Well, the Arkansas legislature is not an idiot collectively. They overrode the veto resoundingly. ABC News reported Tuesday afternoon the House voted 71-24 and the Senate 25-8 to override the governor's veto a day after it was announced. So, boom, it's law. And as I talked about yesterday, it is insane to think that minors, with the help of quote-unquote healthcare professionals, can get proper treatment regarding whatever gender identity crisis they're having at the moment. As I said, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Medical Association have all said that if someone presents to you with any kind of gender identity crisis, gender dysphoria, whatever, then you are to support their choice to present as the sex opposite of what they were born as. Now, again, I don't have a problem with people doing that. Gender dysphoria is a real thing, and I would never take away someone's right to try to live their life the way that makes them most comfortable. That is the right of every American, and I would never stand in the way of it. But that should be a decision made by an adult, not a 6-year-old child. And the AMA and the two APAs, in their guidelines, say, if a little girl comes up to you and says, I think I'm a boy, then you have to go whole hog and support their being a boy. Regardless of the deleterious effects that decision may have on that child 10, 15, 20 years down the road, data that we don't have yet on what would happen to them. This just started happening 10 years ago. There are no long-term studies on what these hormone blockers do to children as they age. We do know it causes an increased risk in cancer in both trans men and trans women. We know that. But we've yet to see any studies that show that these types of interventions create any type of lasting benefits to these individuals. We don't know. But the American Medical Group, the AMA and the two APAs, boom, they're all in. You think you're a girl? You're a girl. Do you want estrogen now? Or would you rather wait until after your 7th birthday just so you can make sure? That's where we're at right now in this country. So for Governor Hutchinson to say that he wanted the families to be able to consult with medical professionals as to how to proceed further, that's stupid. I'm sorry, Governor. That is absolutely stupid. You obviously have no idea what you're talking about. Shame on you. Shame on you, but God bless the Arkansas legislature. By the way, I love Arkansas. Great barbecue, great people, beautiful areas. Not the Ozarks. The Ozarks. Beautiful area. I almost crashed in them once. Got stuck between the clouds and the terrain, flying a plane from San Antonio to Dayton, Ohio. and barely made it out of there alive. But it was a fun event. And I would like to welcome Hug and Peace. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. To the D-Live channel and to the D-Live chat. Thank you so much for being here. Hugpin Peace. Hpin Peace. I can never read names. I apologize. But thank you, Peace, if I may do that. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show. Moving right along. All right, from Arkansas to Georgia. Now we're back to the impact of Bill 202. Seems to be pretty straightforward. Voter ID is required at the polls, and you have to provide one of 4 types of identification to cast an absentee ballot properly. They've done away with signature matching, which is a pretty stupid process in my opinion. There are many other ways, especially now in this digital age, to provide proper identification. And Georgia says you can provide a recent utility bill with your name and address. You can provide the last 4 digits of your social security number. You can provide your driver's license number. Or you can provide a photocopy of state ID. All those things are available. Yet we're supposed to believe those are Jim Crow laws that are trying to suppress the minority vote. Because minorities are too stupid to be able to do any of those things. Again, the only way you can get around Democrats calling these Jim Crow laws is to either agree that minorities are so stupid they can't comply with basic identification requirements, or the Democrats just want to cheat. Those are your only 2 options. So Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the Atlanta mayor, and I'm getting this from Janita Khan from the Epoch Times, she's putting together a commission to try to mitigate the impact of Bill 202 for Atlanta voters. Mitigate. Here is a statement from Mayor Bottoms. The voting restrictions of SB 202 will disproportionately impact Atlanta residents, particularly in communities of color and other minority groups. This administrative order is designed to do what those in the majority of the state legislature did not: expand access to our right to vote. Close quote. Some of the actions officials could take include providing training to staff members on voter registration and general information on early, absentee, and in-person voting, disseminating information to residents on how to obtain forms of identification required for absentee voting, and including information about voter registration and absentee voting in water bills and other types of mail. And you know what? I don't have a problem with any of those. I think they are belt and suspenders and another belt. But fine, if that'll make you feel better, go ahead. Now, one of the things I just read should adversely affect the electoral process in Atlanta. I think those are all good things, as long as they are used across the board. As long as those features, if you will, those plans, do not solely concentrate on minority communities. Because if they do, now you're getting into some serious voter suppression stuff. Now you're supporting the vote of one group, which tends to be Democrat, over another. And that I will not stand for, and I don't think the voters of Atlanta will stand for it. So we'll have to see what happens there. But again, these could be good things. On the face, these are good things. Education and assistance are always good things. So we'll see what happens. So now we'll jump to Indiana, which we just visited with Vice President Pence. You remember, he was a radio personality in Indiana for years before he became a representative in the U.S. House and then governor. And he still has his radio chops. If you ever see him doing a hit on a news show and they give him 30 seconds to wrap up a question, he nails it every time. He never goes over and he never goes short. Boom, he hits it. The man knows his marks. Well, now we've got another story coming out of Indiana. This is by Ryan Saavedra from the Daily Wire today. And this is about Indiana going after 5 big tech companies for censorship. And you guys know I hit on censorship quite a bit on this show. I think it's vitally important that we see everything that's happening and are up to date on it so we can fight it. Knowledge is power. And so one little thing I can do here is try to give you guys some knowledge that you may or may not already have, and give you perhaps a little impetus to use that knowledge to good effect. Maybe, maybe not, but that's my goal. That is my goal. And to have a little fun along the way. But we've got a statement here from Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the statement says that his office is going to start an investigation centered around whether 5 big tech companies, quote, have potentially harmed Indiana consumers through business practices that are abusive, deceptive, and or unfair. Continuing with the statement, in particular, Attorney General Rokita is probing methods by which the companies have limited consumers' access to certain content, often deleting or obscuring posted material reflecting a politically conservative point of view. Such manipulation prevents consumers from making informed choices. So, the 5 companies they're looking at include Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, and Twitter. Now, I really don't know why the Daily Wire decided to use the word include in that statement, because that is, in fact, 5 companies in that list. So if it says 5 companies, then why say include? The 5 companies that Rokita is probing are, and boom, there you have it. But anyway, I have a lot of editorial gripes with the Daily Wire. They often misspell words or leave out the proper adjective, giving some statements a negative impact when it should be a positive impact, and vice versa. But every now and then they get it right. So God bless the Daily Wire. But the statement also said that, pardon me, I can back up. Rokita is also probing alleged actions taken by attorney Vanita Gupta, a far-left activist that President 46 asterisk has nominated to be Associate Attorney General at the DOJ to, quote, encourage the companies to censor conservative viewpoints. The statement said that Gupta, again quoting, has allegedly met with Facebook and Twitter executives to urge, quoting her, more rigorous rules and enforcement, as quoted in Time magazine. Gupta, according to the Time article, stressed that it was important for social media platforms to be, quote, tagging things and taking them down. And again, it looks like the states are going to have to stand up for themselves because the federal government is completely in disrepair. We lost that. We don't have the House. I'm sure we'll get it back in 2022. I'm sure of it. But we don't have it yet. We don't have the White House. We certainly don't have the Supreme Court, even though technically we should. But, and that pains me a great deal to say that. It really does. But it just seems to be the truth more and more every day. I mean, the fact that they found for Google, after stealing, Oracle code, I mean, absolutely lifting Oracle code and using it for their own platform and being held not liable for any damages for obvious theft of proprietary property. That's where the Supreme Court is right now, folks. So, I don't know. It's up to the states. Right now, we've got Florida and Texas, now Indiana. I think there are a few other states looking into something like this about big tech and taking them on. We'll have to see how this spreads. We've got a lot of state houses, folks. We've got a lot of governorships. More Republican than Democrat in the country. We've got to stand up. Got to charge out there. So in order to keep you guys from completely losing your marbles, I decided to split up my Bidens for today. I have 2 of them. This one is in regards to China and the release of the Wuhan virus. As we've been told during the campaign, 46 asterisk, then candidate 46 asterisk, was all about holding China accountable for releasing the Wuhan virus onto the world. That Trump did not do anything. He sat back and watched as the virus burned through the country, downplayed it, etc., etc., etc. All lies, of course, all lies. That's all Biden has ever done is lie. He lied when he was a student in college. He lied when he was a senator. He lied 3 times as a presidential candidate. He's also a very mean person. Just look at the video of what he did to Robert Bork when he was nominated as a Supreme Court Justice. In the absolute, and I'm quoting now Justice Thomas's words, high-tech lynching that poor man underwent during his nomination for Supreme Court Justice. Or approval, I should say. You remember Biden, he was not the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee during Bork, but he led the charge. And he and Ted Kennedy absolutely destroyed Bork. They lied through their teeth. How a man who caused a woman to suffocate to death in a car in the cold waters on Chappaquiddick in Massachusetts, after driving, probably drunk, off a bridge, plunging the car into this cold water, and then he swims to shore and hides out in a friend's place until the next day when he has sobered up, never calls the police. People thought that Mary Jo Kopechne drowned. No, she didn't drown. She was in that car with an air bubble above her head. The car hadn't completely submerged. There was an air pocket. And she was floating in that car, freezing in that water, trying to stay alive. She couldn't figure her way out of the car, so she just waited for someone to come help her. And instead, the oxygen in that air pocket was depleted, and the carbon dioxide in that air pocket got heavier and heavier until she suffocated. She did not drown. She actually suffocated. I'm going to say that over and over again to drive that point home. It was not a quick death. It was a horrible, frightening, terrifying death. And Ted Kennedy was never held responsible for that. The worst consequence he had from that was never becoming president. Instead, he became the lion of the Senate and having waitress sandwiches with what's his name? Lion of the Senate, folks. So, well, now we've got Joe Biden as quote-unquote president. And so he said he was going to hold China responsible for the Wuhan virus. He said that he would have demanded and will demand that the U.S. CDC be allowed into China to study the virus. And he said that Trump absolutely fell down on the job by not doing that. That Trump was obviously soft on China by not doing that. Well, Biden's had the opportunity for months now to demand a CDC team go into China, and he hasn't. Hasn't said a word. In fact, he's asked directly here if he's talked to the premier of China about the Wuhan virus and China's role in causing a pandemic that's killed over 3 million people, including over 500,000 people here in the United States. And Biden has an excellent answer to that. No, I haven't. Here you go.
Mr. President, you mentioned 554,064 American dead from COVID-19. A lot of families want to know how this happened, how it got here. Have you had a chance to speak to any of your international partners, any of President Xi, who I know you go way back with? Have you had a chance to ask him if these reports are true that China maybe misled the world at the beginning?
No, I have not had that conversation with President Xi. Thank you.
There it is. There it is. No, I have not had that conversation with President Xi. Once again, in case you didn't recognize the voice, that was Peter Doocy, the only decent reporter in the White House right now. I will give 46* credit for stopping to listen to the question. He was on his way out the door, as he always is, but he did stop for the question. I will give him credit for that, but that's the only credit I will ever give him, is listening to a question. Obviously, beyond that, he does nothing. But there you have it. There's Biden holding China's feet to the fire for what they've done to the world. Who could ask for a stronger president than that? I don't know. Checking the D-Live chat, White Fox Liz says Biden has no clue. He believes whatever his handlers tell him. It's currently 3:50. I had a story about that, by the way. I decided not to go with it, but I'll reference it briefly. Psaki said yesterday that Biden and Obama talk frequently. Now, remember, Trump basically had no one to help him charter a course through the presidency because the Republican Party completely turned their back on him. He hardly had anyone who wanted to work in the White House who wasn't there to subvert his presidency. You know, vive la resistance, those people. You remember all the leaks that came out of the White House continuously. And then they were just false stories determined to bring him down. We're not seeing any of that with Sleepy Joe. He's got the entire Biden administration behind him. Every piece of you-know-what, bureaucrat, career diplomat, and out-and-out far-left activist is hanging on his coattails. Hanging on his coattails and dragging this country down with him. But he's often in contact with Obama. We're going to go long for a second. I need to read this article in good detail. This is by Hank Berrien from the Daily Wire, and this is a list of all the times, I shouldn't say all, of many of the times that Biden, and now, just very recently, 46 Asterisk himself, have leaked details about defense actions by Israel that were designed in no uncertain terms to completely subvert Israel's ability to defend itself. Against Iran, especially. Because you remember, Obama and Biden were all about appeasing Iran. That's why they gave them how many billions and billions of dollars in different foreign currencies flown in on pallets and 2 cargo aircraft in the dead of night without telling anyone in America that it was happening. Not to mention the other, $100 billion? I can never remember the number. In frozen assets that we had, that we gave to them, thereby allowing them to ramp up worldwide terrorism like never before. President Trump came in and he sat on Iran. He crushed their economy. Iran's economy shrunk by a good 5.5% while Trump was in office. Now, the Biden administration is looking at releasing pretty much every dollar, foreign and domestic, that is held by banks as sanctions against Iran in order to get Iran to come to the table to negotiate another quote-unquote nuclear deal. We are literally talking about paying Iran to come to the table to bend us over and give it to us all over again. Folks, Middle East peace is dying on a vine. Under Trump, we had the Abraham Accords. Israel signed peace deals with Sudan, with the UAE, with Bahrain. They came to a better understanding with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, for the first time, allowed Israeli aircraft to transit their airspace. Israel's in a decent relationship with Egypt. And we were looking at a number of other Arab countries coming to the table as long as Iran remained held down. And now this administration is going to do everything they can to undo all of that. Every inch of it. So one of the first things on the agenda is debilitating Israel. We all know that Obama hated Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, who is now still Prime Minister, even though they're going to need another election. He tapped Netanyahu's phone, consistently denied Israel any type of options that would have helped it defend itself, basically stood by while the UN put sanction after sanction against Israel. Trump came in and became the best friend Israel ever had in the White House. But again, we're going to go long here. YouTube, you got an extra few minutes. But let me give you this list of leaks from Obama, Biden, and now Biden that have been designed to submarine Israel. Okay, this just happened yesterday. This is a tweet from Amichai Stein, blue check mark. U.S. officials tell New York Times Israel informed the U.S. it attacked Iran's ship Savis in the Red Sea in, quote, retaliation for earlier Iranian strikes on Israeli vessels, close quote, and added, quote, the ship was damaged under the waterline. Let me close this window. Someone's using a freaking wood chipper right now. I'll be right with you. There we go. I hope that's better. My apologies again for the noise. That's twice today I've had to turn off net noise. Okay, so that was just yesterday, all right? We're exposing Israel's military efforts against Iran. What good reason could there be for that? What possible good reason could there be for that except to give Iran cover and make Israel look bad? So again, this is completely 180 degrees from what the Trump administration was doing in regards to the Middle East. This current group of idiots is strengthening Iran and trying to tear down our only Democrat ally in the Middle East. And by Democrat, I mean small d Democrat. A democratic government. Israel's it, folks. It's the only democratic government, really, in the Middle East. The rest are sultanates and basically strongmen. So let's see what else has happened to Israel since Biden and Obama were in office. In 2010, Israeli Ambassador Michael Oren said, Israel's ties with the United States are in their worst crisis since 1975, a crisis of historic proportions. In October 2012, Danny Danon, chairman of Likud's International Outreach Branch, said that the Obama administration's policies had been, quote, catastrophic. So, let's get into this. This is between 2010 and 2015. First, we leaked, by we, of course, I mean Biden and Obama, leaked information about a secret deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia in which the Saudis agreed to let Israel use their airspace in the event of an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. On March 22, 2012, that same administration leaked to the New York Times the results of a classified war game. And the Institute for National Security Studies analyst Yoel Guzansky said of the leak, quote, it seems like a big campaign to prevent Israel from attacking. I think the Obama-Biden administration is really worried Jerusalem will attack and attack soon. They're trying hard to prevent it in so many ways. In April 2012, New Yorker reported that the Obama-Biden administration leaked information that the Israeli Mossad, their basically secret agency, was funding and training the Iranian opposition group Mujahideen-e-Khalq, or the MEK. It was noted this revelation was intended to portray Israel as being unwilling to negotiate in good faith with the government in Tehran and to thereby undermine any moral authority that Israel might claim in the event of a future military strike against Iran. I'm not done. In early May 2013, two Obama-Biden administration officials leaked classified information indicating that Israel was behind a May 3rd airstrike against a shipment of advanced surface-to-surface missiles at the airport in Damascus. Israeli security analysts said the leak could not only endanger any Israeli agents who are still on the ground in Syria, but could also increase the likelihood that Syrian President Bashar Assad would retaliate against the Jewish state. In November 2013, the Obama-Biden administration official leaked to CNN that a Syrian base in Latakia, which held Russian-made mobile missile systems that could have been given to the terrorist group Hezbollah, had been attacked by Israeli warplanes. Perazo pointed out, quote, Israeli officials called the leak scandalous and unthinkable. And finally, January 2015, same administration, leaked information alleging that an anonymous Mossad official had opposed sanctions on Iran. So now they're trying to foment disunity inside Mossad. That didn't last long. Within hours, the official, the Mossad's Tamir Pardo, responded, quote, "Contrary to what has been reported, the head of Mossad did not say that he opposes imposing additional sanctions on Iran. Regarding the reported reference to, quote, throwing a grenade, close quote, the head of the Mossad did not use this expression regarding the imposition of sanctions, which he believes to be the sticks necessary for reaching a good deal with Iran. He used this expression as a metaphor to describe the possibility of creating a temporary crisis in the negotiations, at the end of which talks would resume under improved conditions." Now, I will not go into the last part of this, but let's just remember, if you think that this stuff just started happening with Biden when he hooked up with Obama, no. In 1982, Biden was part of a Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting, and they were, quote-unquote, warning then Israeli Premier Menachem Begin to stop putting new Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria, which President Trump recognized as being part of Israel, by the way. And Biden was literally banging his fist on the desk, yelling at Begin about those settlements. And Begin cut him off at the knees. I'll just read the first couple sentences here. "Don't threaten us with cutting off your aid. It will not work. I am not a Jew with trembling knees. I'm a proud Jew with 3,700 years of civilized history. Nobody came to our aid when we were dying in the gas chambers and ovens. Nobody came to our aid when we were striving to create our country. We paid for it. We fought for it. We died for it. We will stand by our principles. We will defend them. And, when necessary, we will die for them again, with or without your aid. In your face, Joe Biden." But as I said, again, I'm going to go long. We are trying to get Iran back to the table by giving them everything they want. We're going to take off sanctions. We're going to release sanctions against private corporations to do business with Iran. We're going to authorize the other banks around the world that have Iranian assets to release them. We're talking about flooding the Iranians with hundreds of billions of dollars, all in an effort to get back into the worst treaty in history. Because that was the Obama-Biden legacy, the Iran deal, the JCPOA. And Trump blew it up, and rightfully so. And it worked. It worked. And now they're going back to the same playbook as before. The Middle East is going to start burning down around its ears all over again. And Israel is going to be left standing alone. I'm just devastated by that. Just absolutely devastated. All right, YouTube. You've gotten your fill and then some today. Saying goodbye to you. Again, for those of you who cared to, please consider downloading the DLive app on your phone. It's available both on Google Play Store and Apple. Or you can just go to their website, dlive.tv. Type in dlive.tv/AHNC. You can see it on your screen there. And join us for the full show every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern to around 6 p.m. Eastern, sometimes a little over. The chat is excellent. And there's also a great setup with microtransactions where you can make a little money as well as I'm able to do so. So everybody wins. So please consider moving over to DLive. YouTube is constantly scrubbing off my subscribers. They have demonetized me. So I'm basically on YouTube and Trovo, for that matter, to get you guys to come to DLive. And hopefully you'll be able to do so. So with that said, bye YouTube. See ya.